I'm a stupid lady from the Prime Minister's family. When I was 16 years old, I married the Crown Prince. In the second month of marrying him, he was demoted to a concubine and sent to Yenzhou. On the day I was demoted, he pinched me fiercely. Don't you know what your father wants to marry you to me? I nodded and winked at him. Because I like you. Everyone said that he was violent and immoral, but I only knew that he had given me a piece of osmanthus cake. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. I'm Miss Yen of the Prime Minister's family. I heard my grandmother say that I was the princess of the inner design, but when I was 8 years old, I fell and hit my head. Since then, my father has asked my smart sister to marry the Crown Prince Li Yan for me. My sister doesn't like Li Yan. Every time I saw him, when I came back, I would drop things in the house, crying and crying about not marrying him. It may be that Daddy is afraid that there are not enough things at home for her to fall. Finally, on the day I was ready, he called me into the study. Sister-in-law, are you willing to marry the Crown Prince? He walked up to me and asked me softly. My eyes lit up and I nodded heavily. I do. So Li Yan and I were married on the 8th day of the 8th month of August, which was 3 months later. On the eve of the wedding, my sister-in-law strangely stuffed a small box into my arms. Instead of being arrogant, she said to me, "Fool, I owe you." I don't understand what she owes me. Could it be that she also dropped my stuff before? But if she hadn't thrown things around, my father wouldn't have let me marry Li Yan. Thinking of this, I smiled and patted her on the head. It's okay. I don't blame you. On the second day, I changed into a red wedding dress, sat in a big red wedding sedan chair and was carried into the East Palace. I sat on the bed for a long time. When I dozed off, the crown on my head accidentally hit the edge of the bed, and my eyes were red in pain. "Miss, why don't you wait for the old slave to sleep first?" Mama felt sorry for me, and when she saw me like this, she asked me softly. I shook my head. The hairpin ring on the head clanged, which was very nice. "Mama," she said, "that it is only a ceremony for His Royal Highness the Crown Prince to come down and take off the hijab." I tried to sit up. "If I sleep now, His Royal Highness the Crown Prince regrets it. What if I want to marry my sister tomorrow?" Mama sighed and didn't speak again. It was a moment before footsteps were heard outside the door. I heard someone open the door and walk towards me. And the next moment the hijab was lifted, the candle on the side swayed, shaking the shadow on the ground. I looked up with a smile and saw Li Yan. He also wore the same red wedding dress as me, which made him look even better. It's like a fairy in a painting in Daddy's study. His Royal Highness the Prince, I call him sweetly. His indifferent gaze fell on me, and the corners of his lips hooked up and he smiled. "Sure enough, it's you. The Prime Minister is really good at calculating." I blinked. "What abacus, Daddy? What is he going to do?" He didn't answer me, just threw the jade ruby in his hand, turned around and left the house. "Mama," she said, "that when I married Li Yan, I wanted to eat and sleep with him. But now he's gone." I looked sideways at Mama and pursed my mouth. "Mama, does His Royal Highness the Crown Prince not like me?" Mama came back to her senses and stepped forward to hold my face. "How so? Miss is good-looking, and no one will dislike you. His Royal Highness the Crown Prince is too busy." Mama never lies. "Then I'll wait for His Royal Highness the Crown Prince to be no longer busy, and then I'll go sleep with him. Li Yan seems to be busy every day. He never came to eat with me, nor did he come to sleep with me. I've only seen him twice in a month and a half, but I haven't even said a word." That night, it suddenly rained heavily, and thunder fell one after another. I cowered in bed. Whenever I like this, I think if only my mother was still around. But my mother is gone, and Li Yan, so I gritted my teeth, hugged the futon, and ran barefoot to Li Yansu's Qinzheng Palace. When I pushed the door open, he was still sitting in front of the desk reading the booklet. When he heard the door open, he didn't raise his head. "What's the matter?" I held the futon and poked out my head and asked him in a low voice, "Your Royal Highness the Prince, are you afraid of thunder?" He was slightly stunned before he looked up at me. I saw his good-looking eyebrows furrowed slightly, and finally his gaze fell on my bare feet. I carefully hid my feet behind the door and looked at him with a smile. "If you are afraid of thunder, do you want to sleep with you?" He looked at me for a long time before he sighed shallowly. "Come in." This sentence is like a heavenly sound. I hurried in, and when I turned to close the door, another thunderclap fell. I shrank my shoulders in fright, and the futon in my arms fell to the ground. I hurriedly picked up the futon, turned around and secretly looked at Li Yan, and was relieved to find that he was looking at the booklet in his hand instead of me. The palace is not big. If you go a little inside, you can see the wooden couch where Li Yan sleeps on weekdays. I took a few steps inside with my futon in my arms. "Stop." Before he ran to the wooden couch, he was stopped by Li Yan. I turned back slowly. He raised his hand and rubbed his head, then pointed to the futon in my arms and said coldly, "Throw it away." I let go, and the futon fell to the ground. "Someone," he shouted out the door. Soon someone pushed the door in. He looked down at the booklet on the case. "Clean the feet of the crown princess." I sat quietly on the couch, tilting my head to look at Li Yi while the maid washed my feet. Only half of his face could be seen, shining in the candlelight. "It's really good looking." After everyone stepped back, Li Yan looked sideways at me again. He asked me, "What are you laughing at?" I honestly replied, "You're good looking." His long eyelashes seemed to tremble, and he put down the booklet in his hand and walked towards me. I quickly moved inside to make way for him. "Aren't you afraid of being lonely?" He sat on the edge of the bed. I blinked. "Why should I be afraid of you? Your sister-in-law. She can be scared to cry when she sees Lone. It seems so. She is a crybaby and has nothing to do with His Royal Highness the Crown Prince." I lied. He laughed. At this moment, another thunder fell outside the window, and I was so frightened that I hurriedly threw myself into his arms. He didn't pat me on the back like his mother. He just let me hold me. After a while, it was quiet outside. I let go of him and lowered my head and pulled his sleeve. "Your Royal Highness the Prince. In fact, my wife is afraid of thunder. Can you sleep with me?" He looked down at my hand, and then at me. Okay, I knew it. When I was 8 years old, I knew that Li Yan was a good person. It's the same today. When Mama found me, Li Yan was already gone. "Crown Princess, you can scare the old slave to death." She hurried in and was relieved to see that I was safe and sound. I know why she said that. Everyone in this East Palace was afraid of Li Yan. Even Mama didn't dare to look up at him when she saw him, as if he was a man-eating tiger. But I think they're all wrong. Li Yan is good-looking. He should stare at him every day. Ever since I slept in the Qinzheng Palace, no one in the palace stopped me from looking for him. But he doesn't want to see me every day. He didn't let me sleep with him in the Qinzheng Palace. I don't know if I kicked the quilt again that night to make him think that I was not honest in sleeping, but that's okay. It's great to see him often. "Crown Princess, you can't go in today." The palace people outside the Qinzheng Hall stopped me. My head drooped all at once. At this time, there was a sudden sound of falling things in the hall, which frightened the palace people in front of me. I'm used to it. My sister also loves to throw things. I stepped forward and just wanted to lie on the door to see if Li Yan was crying. But I was stopped by the palace people. Even his fingers were trembling at this time. "The Crown Princess, go back quickly. Your Highness is sick. Your Highness is sick." Then I can't go back. I took the food box with the snacks from my grandmother and pushed the door open despite their resistance. I saw that the hall was in a mess, and Li Yan sat in front of the desk dejectedly, and the dark robe embroidered with brocade and red text was a little messy. Unlike his previous arrogance and indifference, the strands of hair hanging down from his forehead and the reddened tails of his eyes made him look a little crazy at this time. "His Royal Highness the Prince." I walked in softly and whispered to him. There were a few palace people kneeling on the ground inside the door, and when they saw me coming in, they hurriedly crawled out with a belt. At this time, Li Yan raised his head, and the tails of his eyes were scarlet. As if trying desperately to see me, he squinted and raised his hand to rub his head. Before I could get over, he yelled, "Get out of here!" Mama hurriedly ran in and pulled me, trying to pull me out. I broke free of my grandmother's hand, walked forward with the food box, and winked at him. "Your Royal Highness the Prince, I made a delicious osmanthus cake today. Do you want to taste it?" He looked at me with a heavy gaze and a frown on his head with one hand. "Do you have a headache?" I hurriedly put the food box down and walked around behind him. "I'll rub it for you." Saying that, Under Mama's shocked gaze, I raised my hand and put it on Li Yan's head, learned to rub my mother's head like my father's head. I rubbed and blew. Your Royal Highness the Prince, does it still hurt? He didn't speak. Mama didn't know when she quietly withdrew. After a long time, Li Yan raised his hand and grabbed my hand. Who did you learn it from? His voice was not as hoarse as it had just been, and there was something indescribably good. I obediently replied, I learned from my mother, and my father used to have headaches. In the past, when I mentioned my father, Li Yan would always continue to ask me a few words about him. This time he didn't ask again, only the osmanthus crisp was left, so I was asked to go back early. Later, I learned that he had this headache since he was a child. Mama told me that everyone in the palace knew that he was like a madman when he was sick. Many palace people died when he fell ill. You should be careful in the future, Mama told me with some trepidation. I shook my head. If I don't rub him, won't he hurt more? Mama saw that she couldn't convince me, so she didn't mention it again. The rest of the day was business as usual. Within a few days, a decree deposing the prince came. I don't understand what it means to be deposed. In the future, the prince will not be the prince, Mama explained to me with a sad face. I looked up at her. And who is he? It's Li Yan. I still don't get it. Li Yan was originally Li Yan. On this day, I waited for a long time in the Qinzheng Hall until someone carried Li Yan in. His clothes were covered in blood. And I was so frightened that I didn't know where to put my hands for a moment. You can only watch people go in and out. At last the maidservants gave him a change of dry clothes, and they all withdrew. What are you crying for? Li Yan, who was lying on the bed, looked sideways at me. I sniffed and choked up and asked him, do you hurt? His long eyelashes quivered, and his eyes were bottomless black. Don't you know today? He pulled me over and put one hand on my neck, and his voice was low. Don't you understand what your father had in mind by marrying you to me? I was stunned for a moment, then he nodded. I understand. With tears in my voice, I whispered, I told my father that I like you and am willing to marry you. His eyes twitched, and he lightened his hands. I leaned on top of him and cautiously asked him the question he had wanted to ask on his wedding night a month ago. Your Royal Highness the Prince, are you stupid and unwilling to marry me? Li Yan didn't speak. When I looked up again, I saw that he was asleep. I pursed my lips, so I quietly got off him and carefully lay down beside him. They said they couldn't call you His Royal Highness the Crown Prince anymore. I lay on the bed and looked sideways at him. Then I'll call you husband from now on, okay? His eyes were closed, and his long eyelashes seemed to move. The only thing that answered me was his extremely light breathing. If you don't speak, I'll take you as promised. I don't know if it's because I like the title of husband, or because I'm satisfied with my cleverness. With that, I covered my mouth and laughed stupidly, laughing and laughing. He fell asleep with it. When I woke up, there was a loud noise outside the door. Li Yan beside him has not woken up yet. I ran out lightly, and saw a few palace people with eyes coming to the door. Who are you? I stood at the door of the Qinzheng Palace, and while letting my grandmother comb my loose bun for me, I stared at the palace people in front of me. When the palace people led by the group saw that it was me, they grinned and showed an unsightly smile. The slave is the person next to His Majesty, and he came today by His Majesty's command. As he spoke, he raised his voice and said to the palace, the criminals Li Yan have been sent to Yenzhou and will leave on the same day, and they must not stay in Beijing. After speaking, he looked at me again. Your Majesty also said that Gu Xiang has done his best for the country. You are Gu Xiang's daughter. As long as Li Yan writes and leaves the book, you can return to the Prime Minister's mansion safely. I blinked. What is the Book of Harmony? I turned around and asked Mama. Mama was a little embarrassed and whispered in my ear, it is to break the relationship between you and Li Yan. I don't want to. But before I could speak, there were footsteps behind me. As soon as I turned around, I saw Li Yan standing inside the door. He was only wearing the white undershirt that the palace maids had changed into for him yesterday, and his beautiful face was as pale as the snow that had fallen in the winter moon last year. I quickly turned around and tried to run to him. But I forgot that my grandmother was combing my hair in a bun. My hair was jerked, and tears rolled in my eyes. Li Yan, Your Majesty remembers that your injuries have not healed, and you are allowed to leave Beijing by carriage. And the carriage has arrived at the palace gate. When the nasty palace man saw Li Yan come out, his voice became even sharper. Li Yan didn't raise his eyes to look at him, but only fell lightly on me. He stared at the bun that had fallen from one side of my hair. Frowning slightly, maybe they think I'm stupid, thinking of what Mama just said. I was so frightened that I quickly grabbed the corner of his clothes and shook my head at him. Too, husband, don't be reconciled. His eyes were dark, reflecting my somewhat flustered face. After looking at me for a while, he raised his hand and pulled the corner of his coat out of my hand. Do you know where Yenzhou is? He asked me in a whisper. I was stunned and subconsciously looked back at Mama. Mama hurriedly stepped forward and pulled me aside. She knelt down towards Li Yan. Miss has been weak since she was a child, and she can't stand the cold in the north, so the old slave dares to ask you for a piece of paper and a letter of departure, Mama. I looked at her with some surprise. She's been there for me for as long as I can remember. Before she died, my mother told me that I must listen to my grandmother. I've been obedient ever since, but now Mama wants Li Yan to reconcile with me. Miss, Mama hugged me sideways. Her eyes were red. Master wants to protect you. You can listen to something. I don't understand. It is they who say that husband and wife are one. Now it is they who want to let Li Yan and leave. I was so anxious to look up at Li Yan. He hooked the corners of his mouth, sneered, and then turned and walked back. Since I want it, I have no reason not to give it. Li Yan wrote me a piece of paper and a letter of departure. I don't know all the words on it, but I know that his words are very beautiful, like his people. Miss, Mama was a little distressed when she saw me looking at the book and not talking. I carefully put away the book and looked sideways at her. Mama, I'm hungry. I want to eat the sweet lotus seed soup you made. She was stunned. Okay, good, old slave will do it for you. She said yes again and again, and then turned around and went out. It's good to eat, just eat it. As soon as she left, I hurried to the temple. After groping around the temple for a while, I stuffed everything I liked into my clothes. In the end, taking advantage of the fact that the palace people were not paying attention, he climbed out of the back window. The annoying palace man said that the carriage that sent Li Yan away had stopped at the palace gate. I've been there a few times on the way to the palace gate, some far. By the time I slipped into the carriage, my legs were already a little weak. I cowered in the corner of the carriage and pulled the thin blanket over myself, so that no one will find out. I don't know how long I waited. Footsteps were heard outside, and in a few moments someone got into the carriage. I was so frightened that I forgot to breathe and didn't dare to move, but Li Yan still found out. He lifted the thin blanket, and when he saw that it was me, his eyebrows moved slightly. Why, how did you know I was hiding here? I pulled the blanket and whispered to him. He seemed to have heard something funny, and looked around the car. What do you say? I do not know. Obviously, I didn't make a sound. In the past, I played hide and seek with my grandmother, and I was never caught hiding in bed like this. I think Li Yan should be smarter. I reached out and gently grabbed Li Yan's sleeve and asked him softly, don't drive me away. Okay. He looked down at me. I'm very obedient, and I haven't been sick in a long time. Mama, she said, not true. I sat down next to him as I spoke. Would you like to take me to Yenzhou with you? He glanced at my stuffed clothes, and there seemed to be stars in his eyes. To Yenzhou? He asked me. I nodded. Did you know that when you go to Yenzhou, you will no longer be able to eat these delicious pastries and wear those beautiful dresses? I don't know about this, but how important is pastry is Li Yan? It's okay. I pursed my lips. I won't eat it anymore. He reached out and gently lifted my chin, his eyes darkening. Your father won't want to. I blinked, my eyes red. I lied to you. I pursed my mouth aggrievedly. Daddy actually doesn't like me at all, and after my mother left, he almost didn't come to see me. I know he thinks I'm too stupid, and he likes smart sisters. I sniffed and looked at Li Yan pitifully. Do you also like smart sisters? That's why you want to leave with me? His hand on my chin slowly ran over the edge of my chin, and there seemed to be an uncertain smile on the corner of his mouth. Not necessarily. His voice was light, but it was indescribably good. I don't understand what he meant. Does he mean he doesn't think I'm stupid? or does he not like my sister-in-law? Before I could ask him again, a male voice suddenly came from outside. Temple, master, what's the sound inside? I hurriedly covered my mouth and shook my head at Li Yan. Li Yan lifted the curtain on the side and glanced at the high palace wall before saying, "It's okay, let's go." I looked sideways at him. The sun was in full bloom outside, and a few rays of sunlight fell through the curtain on the bridge of his high nose. I can't tell if he's happy or unhappy. He lowered the curtain and looked back at me. The eyes were deep, and the good sunlight did not fall in the slightest. He said lightly, "Since you sent it to the door yourself, don't regret it in the future." It's a long way from Kyoto to Yenzhou. Li Yan basically didn't talk much along the way, only I chattered non-stop. In a month, I almost told the story of my 16 years in the Prime Minister's mansion, after my mother died. Only my mother was good to me. As I spoke, I lowered my eyes and looked at the little puppet doll in my hand. "This is what Mama sewed for me." I touched the doll's face and whispered. I don't know if Mama saw the letter I wrote to her. Li Yan, who was still reading, raised his head, somewhat surprised. He asked me, "Can you write?" "Of course, my mother taught me before." I nodded, feeling a little weak, "But I've almost forgotten it, and now I can only write my own name." Li Yan's eyebrows moved. Before he could speak, the carriage stopped suddenly. I fell into his arms and my head hurt. "Who's up ahead?" Outside the carriage, Li Yan's voice guarding Qingshan sounded. "I am the king of this mountain, and if I want to pass through here, I will leave behind money and women." A gruff voice came from ahead. Li Yan frowned and helped me up. As soon as I sat down, I heard him whisper, "Kill." "Yes," Aoyama replied loudly. Outside there was the sound of a fight. Li Yan saw that I had been staring at him, and silently hooked the corners of his mouth. Scared, I blinked and raised my hand to his chest. "Does it hurt in here?" I touched my head. "Did I hurt you?" Just now he frowned. It must have been because I hurt him. He didn't seem to expect me to ask that, and he was a little stunned for a moment, afraid that he would drive me away when he got angry. I hurriedly stepped forward and blew 2 breaths for him. Just as I looked up to ask if he was still in pain, he suddenly took me into his arms. In the blink of an eye, our carriage was split in half. All of a sudden, my eyes lit up. As soon as I wanted to look back, I was pressed against my head by Li Yan's hand. "Master, you take your wife first." Aoyama's voice came from behind him, and I was buried in Li Yan's arms and couldn't see anything. I only knew that Li Yan jumped out of the carriage with me in his arms and kept running ahead. The wind was blowing in my ears, and I was obediently held in my arms by Li Yan, and I suddenly felt a little happy. This is the first time Li Yan has hugged me. He has a faint medicinal fragrance on his body, which is very good. I don't know how long it took him to stop in front of a ruined temple and let me down from his arms. By this time it was already dark. The ruined temple in front of him was pitch black, and nothing could be seen. I grabbed Li Yan's clothes in fear and walked inside with him. "At this time, you know that you are scared." He looked down at my hand tugging at his clothes, and there seemed to be a smile in his tone. I'm not afraid." As soon as my words fell, I don't know what moved in the corner. Frightened, I hurriedly hugged Li Yan. Li Yan unhurriedly took out a fire fold from his arms, lit it and poked into the corner. "It's just a mouse." Mouse. I was even more scared, and I didn't dare to open my eyes when I was behind him. After a while, he chuckled, "Afraid of rats, but not of me." He sat me down next to me and lit a fire in front of me. "I don't know if you are bold or cowardly. I don't understand why he should compare to a mouse. Could it be that he is stupid too? Rats steal. They're bad rats. That's why I'm scared." I patiently explained to him, "But you are the best husband in the world, so I am naturally not afraid of you." He was stunned for a moment. "The best in the world." I nodded heavily and smiled sideways at him. The warm tongue of fire suddenly jumped up, and the firelight fell on Li Yan's body, stretching the shadow behind him very long. I saw that he lowered his eyes slightly, and there was a shadow under his long eyelashes. In the crackling sound of firewood, I heard him laugh. His voice was soft, with some emotions that I couldn't quite understand. "Everybody says you're stupid, but I don't think so. You're used to winning people's hearts. Except for my mother, no one ever complimented me on being smart. Li Yan is really a very good person. It's raining. Outside the ruined temple, the wind was strong, and the broken windows were smashed. A bolt of lightning pierced the night. A deafening thunder followed. I shrank in fright and drilled into Li Yan's arms. Li Yan's hot breath fell on my face, and as soon as I looked up, I saw that his eyes were closed and his forehead was covered with fine sweat. "Husband," I whispered to him. Another thunderclap fell. I sat up trembling and reached out to shake Li Yan. "Li Yan," I was a little scared, and my voice unconsciously cried. But no matter what I called him, he didn't open his eyes. I felt the heat of his hand that was still hot through his clothes. I followed the example of my grandmother, raised my hand and touched his forehead, and then touched my forehead. Sure enough, it's a lot hotter than me. I've had this disease a few times in the past. Every time, my grandmother would change into a cool hand towel for me and coax me to say that it would be good for a while. I fumbled around for a long time, but I couldn't find a handkerchief. I guess I lost it again. I had no choice but to grit my teeth, tear a piece from the hem of my skirt, run outside and get some rainwater and put it back on Li Yan's forehead. I don't know how many times I went back and forth, but Li Yan didn't get better, and a thunderclap fell outside the window. I was so frightened that I lay in his arms and couldn't hold back my tears. "Husband, can you get better soon? Grandma is scared." I don't know if it's because the thunder is too loud or if I'm crying too loudly. Li Yan really woke up. He raised his hand and lightly scratched the corner of my eye, startling me to look up. "What are you crying about?" His voice was hoarse, sounding like a coarse grit had fallen on his heart. I wanted to laugh, but I didn't expect to cry even louder. After a long time, he said, "Husband, don't leave me alone." He looked at me, his eyes darkened, and he took the rag off his forehead, as if sighing very softly. "I'm afraid you're the only one in this world who doesn't want me to die." I don't quite understand what he said. I saw him take out a pill from his arms and feed it into his mouth, before I could ask him what medicine he had taken. Another thunderbolt fell. I hurriedly slipped into his arms. His body stiffened, but he didn't push me away. I don't know if it was because he was extra warm in his arms, but I soon fell asleep in his arms. When I woke up again, it was the next morning. Bright sunlight poured in through the door. I still have Li Yan's robe on my body. I sat up, rubbed my eyes, and heard a voice outside the door. "Master, I've checked. Those people are not bandits." It seems to be the voice of Aoyama. "Aoyama has found us." I got up with a smile, and as soon as I walked to the door, I heard Qingshan whisper again, "As you expected, Gu Xiang's people are also here. Daddy is here too." I leaned against the door and looked at the two not far away. They both turned to look at me when they heard the voices. I blinked and walked over with Li Yan's clothes. "What is Daddy doing?" I looked at Li Yan with some humility. "Did Mama complain to him?" Li Yan stared at the robe that was dragging on the ground in my hand. Frowning slightly, he reached out and took his robe, pointed to the people who were running not far away, and said to me, "Your father didn't come, but she came." I followed his fingers. I saw Mama. I just wanted to call her, but I thought that I had run out secretly, so I quickly hid behind Li Yan. After a while, Mama ran up to us. "Miss," her eyes were red and she called me softly. I tilted my head slightly to look at her. "Mama, I'm not going back. I have torn up the book and left it, and I have not counted what I wrote before." The corners of Li Yan's eyes seemed to move, and he looked down at me. I also looked up at him. "Your handwriting is beautiful." I was reluctant, "but I'm afraid that I won't be able to call you husband if I don't tear it up." He laughed and reached out to wrap me behind him. "And since it has been torn up, let it be as thou hast said, and shall not count it." Mama's face was anxious. "You." Li Yan looked back at her. Her eyebrows and eyes were cold. "They will be there in a few days." "You are so good to serve your young lady. I will protect her." It snowed in Yenzhou. As soon as Mama led me into a small yard, I saw a kitten nestled in the corner. The kitten shivered with cold, and I stepped forward and carried it into the house. "Mama, look how good Yenzhou is." I brought the kitten up to her and smiled. "There are kittens in Yenzhou." Mama looked at the kitten lovingly, then at me, and sighed. Mr. Li, he is not a good person." I blinked, the corners of my mouth drooping. Holding the kitten, he said to her with a straight face, "Mama, husband, he is a good person, don't talk about him like that anymore." Mama didn't speak again, and sighed again, after she cleaned up the house. I excitedly hugged the kitten to find Lian. This house is much smaller than the East Palace. I didn't have long to walk before I saw a green hill standing outside a house. Before I could step forward, Aoyama stopped me. "Ma'am," he bowed his head. "Master is sick, don't go in." I was stunned for a moment, and then I remembered Lian's headache. All the way was unharmed. I almost forgot about it. I shoved the kitten in my hand into Aoyama's hand and smiled at him. "You can help me hug it." Taking advantage of Qingshan's stunned moments, I ran in with my skirt in my hand. There were no lights in the house. It was pitch black. You can only see the dejected person sitting in the middle through the glimmer of light outside, hearing the footsteps. Lian raised his head. The end of the eyes was scarlet, exactly the same as that day. "Husband," I ran to him. "I'll rub your head." After saying that, I walked around behind him as usual and rubbed his head for him. Aoyama stood at the door with the kitten in his arms, looking in a dilemma. Lian did not speak. For a moment, the room was so quiet that it seemed as if we could only hear the two of us breathing. "Husband, I picked up a kitten today." I rubbed his head as I looked up at the kitten in Aoyama's arms at the door. The kitten barked as if by feeling. Lian, who had his eyes closed, slowly opened his eyes and looked at the door. "Come on in," I shouted at Aoyama. "Show my husband the cute kitten." Aoyama walked in with the kitten in his arms. I don't know if it's my delusion, but I seemed to see something passing by outside the window. Qingshan walked up to Lian and squatted down, handed the kitten forward, and said in a low voice, "Let's go." Lian nodded slightly, reached out and touched the kitten's head. The kitten squinted and looked satisfied. "I look a little sour, husband. Do you still have a headache?" I asked Lian. "It doesn't hurt anymore?" I hurriedly smiled and ran to Lian's side and squatted down, looking up at him brightly. He was slightly stunned. I pouted and took his hand off the kitten's head and placed it on mine. He laughed and rubbed his palm against my head. "That's amazing." There was a faint smile in his voice. "It sounds softer than the snow outside the window." My heart fluttered. This is the first time Lian has called me by my nickname. "It's so good." I proudly glanced at the kitten in Qingshan's arms, and asked Lian with a smile, "Can that husband sleep with me today?" I haven't slept well since I left the ruined temple that day. I thought about it for many days, and I felt that it was best to sleep in Lian's arms. Lian's hand on my head stiffened. I blinked. It was only after a while that I heard him say, "Yes." I jumped up for joy and took the kitten from the stunned Aoyama. "Husband is the best." I rubbed my face against the kitten. "Yanzhou. I like Yanzhou." On the second day of our arrival in Yanzhou, there were many guests at home. I heard Mama say that the people who came were all officials from this Yanzhou. Some of them come during the day, some come at night. Lian seemed to be busier than when he was in the East Palace before. I sat in the yard with my kitten in my arms and watched the snow in the treetops, and my grandmother put a fur collar cloak on me from behind. "Miss, do you want to go out for a walk today?" My eyes lit up. "Is that okay?" "Absolutely." Unlike Kyoto, Yanzhou is deserted on the streets, except for a few beggars in the corners. There was hardly anyone to be seen. "It's freezing in Yanzhou." My grandmother led me into a shop. "I can only do business in a warm room." I don't seem to understand. "This is a restaurant for eating." There was no sound outside the door, but as soon as I entered the door, it was full of people, so it was not lively. Mama took me to sit down at a table and ordered a few side dishes that I love to eat on weekdays. I took my chopsticks and looked around curiously. I only heard someone chatting on the side. That white-bearded old man in the west of the city does have some skills. And the old Wang's daughter-in-law's headache for more than 10 years was cured by him as soon as he took medicine. Is there such a god? Headaches? I leaned over and stared at them. "The man you are talking about can cure headaches?" I asked them. They looked at each other and looked at me with a smile. "That's nature. That's a miracle doctor." My eyes lit up. Miracle doctor. 2 days ago, I also heard Qingshan tell Lian that there is an omnipotent miracle doctor in this Yanzhou city. Wouldn't finding him cure Lian's headache? "Can you take me to see it?" I begged them. "Yanzhou is probably a good person. Hearing my words, several people didn't say a word and wanted to take me to the miracle doctor. I looked back, and Mama hadn't come back from going to the toilet. Hurry up, you won't find it if it's too late, someone urged me. I had to nod my head and follow. They took me for a long time before I stopped in front of a shop. Someone looked back at me. This miracle doctor is very expensive. Do you have any money? I naturally have. Is that enough? I pulled out my purse and showed it to them. They looked at each other again and smiled as they led me into the house. That miracle doctor is very powerful. I only said that Li Yan had a headache, so he prescribed me a pill. I poured all the money in my purse into him, and I was about to go back in a hurry, but before he could go out, he was stopped in his way. Little lady, you're leaving. One of them smiled and looked me up and down. Why don't you play with our brothers? I shook my head. I'm not playing today. I have to go back quickly and give the medicine to Li Yan. That's not up to you. One of them laughed twice and then lunged at me, knocked the medicine in my arms to the ground. I'm angry. What do you do? I quickly picked up the medicine and put it in my arms. I don't like you. I don't want to play with you. Seeing that I was angry, several people laughed even more happily. Chi-Chi came around me. The white-bearded old man who had prescribed medicine to me didn't know where he had gone. They forced me to keep backing until someone came up and ripped off my cloak. Someone else caught my hand. The medicine fell to the ground again, and my wrist hurt from being caught. I was so angry and scared that I didn't know what to do for a while. Just as I was kicking my foot up, the door to the hospital was kicked open. I cried so much that I couldn't breathe, and as soon as I looked up, I saw Li Yan standing at the door. The snow behind him slowly drifted in. It made me shiver, but colder than the snow is Li Yan's good-looking face. I didn't frown, but I felt his anger. Who are you? Before the person who caught me finished speaking, he was split by Li Yan's palm. The few people who grabbed me let go of my hand and were about to run. Li Yan didn't let any of them go, took out the dagger in his sleeve and killed them all. Splattered blood fell on his plain white robe. On such a cold day, he only wore a thin robe. Husband. I sobbed and called him. He put away his dagger and turned to look at me, his eyes full of annoyance. I guess I'm too stupid. I hurriedly picked up the medicine on the ground and showed it to him like a treasure. Look. I asked the divine doctor to prescribe a medicine for headaches, and he said that he would never have a headache again after taking it. He lowered his eyes to the medicine bag in my hand, and his long eyelashes twitched slightly. I don't know if I was too tired from crying just now. I just wanted to smile at him, but my legs went weak and fell backwards. Li Yan hurriedly stepped forward to catch me. He wrapped me in his cloak and walked out when he happened to meet the mama who had arrived. Mama took one look at the scene inside the room and gasped in fright. Li Yan looked at her sideways. His face was like frost. That's how you serve. I pulled Li Yan's shirt and whispered for Mama. It's not Mama's fault. I ran out by myself. If you want to punish me. Punish me. He looked down at me. His face was a little softer, but his voice was still a little cold. You won't be allowed to leave me for the rest of the day. I was stunned. This seems to be a reward. I was scammed. That miracle doctor is a fake. The medicine I was given for my headache was also fake. However, Li Yan didn't care about this. As long as I stayed in the study with him from the second day, I didn't go anywhere. He also asked Qingshan to put a low table next to me, and brought me pen, ink, paper, and inkstone. I had a lot of fun at first, but after I yawned for an unknown number of times, I finally fell asleep. In my dream, I was eating sweet and greasy osmanthus cake. And suddenly I didn't know who came to snatch it. I was just about to get it back, but my head sank. When I opened my eyes in a daze, I saw Li Yan's face close at hand, somewhat helplessly. He held my head up with his palm and glanced at the messy drawings on my desk. I woke up all at once. He hid one of the stolen paintings behind him. Li Yan glanced behind me, and there seemed to be an imperceptible smile between his eyebrows, and said softly, "It's better to learn to write today." I didn't hear clearly, so I nodded hurriedly. He got up and took a book from a nearby shelf. "I'm done writing these 2 pages today, and then I'm going to eat." He flipped through 2 of the pages and put them on my case. I can only recognize 1 or 2 of the words on it. It's hard to write when you look at it. I looked up at him, hoping he would soften, but I didn't expect to turn around and walk out directly, and when I walked to the door, I looked back at me again. "Don't go anywhere until you're done." I pursed my lips and nodded my head. After an hour, I finally finished the 2 pages. Mama looked at my words and shook her head silently. "I'm very satisfied. Why hasn't my husband come back yet?" I asked Mama while admiring my words. Mama was silent for a long time before she spoke. "Uncle is meeting the guests in the front hall. Another guest is coming." I nodded and stood up. "Miss is going out?" Mama asked me sideways. I picked up the paper on the table and walked around her with a smile. "I'll go show my husband my handwriting. It was written so quickly. Li Yan will definitely praise me." Without waiting for my grandmother to speak, I ran out. The way from the study to the antechamber was a little far, and as soon as I ran out of the foyer, I saw a familiar figure inside. The green mountain at the door stopped me again. "Ling Yuan." I stood in the doorway and shouted to the people inside. The people standing in the hall heard my voice and turned around. "It's an attendant at Daddy's side." When he saw me, his frowning brow stretched out, and he called me crookedly, "Miss." Seeing that the young lady is okay, the slave is relieved. "What you say?" "The slave will tell the master the truth." He turned back and bowed to Li Yan. He turned to me and bowed to me. I excitedly asked him, "Why are you here?" "Naturally, I'm here to see Miss." His words were gentle. "Is Miss okay here?" I nodded. "I'm good, and so is my husband." At this time, Li Yan also walked out and stood beside me. Ling Yuan glanced at him and smiled. "That's fine." After saying that, he turned around and left. I looked at his figure and pouted. "I haven't asked him if his father is okay." "You're done." Li Yan's voice fell above me. I withdrew my gaze and unfolded the words in my hand to him. "It's done. I'm writing fast." "Right." His gaze fell on my words, and the corners of his eyes seemed to twitch. It was a moment before he looked at my smiling face. "Sigh, that's it. Take your time." Li Yan seemed very interested in me teaching me how to write. Every day, he would leave me in the study to write. "It hurts my wrist when I write it. Can you stop writing today?" I looked at him bitterly. He rubbed his head and looked at me. My eyes lit up, and I hurriedly ran over to rub his head. "Do you have a headache? Shall I rub it for you?" He glanced at me. "Wrist doesn't hurt anymore." "It doesn't hurt." "It doesn't hurt. I'll rub it for you as long as you want. As long as you don't write." At this time, Qingshan walked in from outside the door and saw me rubbing Li Yan's head, and he was stunned for a moment, but he didn't see it. He looked at Li Yan. "Master, someone is coming." Li Yan nodded. Aoyama turned to one side, and I saw an old man with a white beard walking in from outside. The white-bearded old man first touched Li Yan's wrist, then he sighed. "You can bear it." The white-bearded old man gave me a meaningful look. I blinked and looked at Li Yan. I saw that Li Yan's white ears suddenly turned red. He looked away slightly, and said impatiently, "Don't say what you shouldn't say. That's not what I'm asking." The old man smiled and said, "You have invaded your lungs with this poison, and I think you know better than me. Bad healing." Aoyama looked at him nervously. He shook his head. "It's not impossible to be cured. I still need a few introductions. I have to find them." That's when I got it. This is the omnipotent miracle doctor, they say. Li Yan withdrew his hand and pulled me to his side. "Take a look at it for her, too." I hurriedly waved my hand. "I don't need to. I'm not sick. Let's see my husband's headache first." Li Yan didn't listen to me, pressed me on his lap, and took my hand and put it on the bookcase. The white-bearded old man was about to stretch out his hand, and Li Yan took my handkerchief from the side and put it on my wrist. I blinked. Before I could figure out why I had put on a handkerchief, the old man with the white beard put his fingers down. "It's not a big deal to have a stasis in the brain. It's just a little longer." The old man withdrew his hand and looked at me. "Even so, I can see that Madam is different from others." He looked sideways at Li Yan. "Aren't you afraid that in the future, you will be like a bird that has escaped from trouble, not satisfied with the cage?" I also looked at Li Yan. I don't understand what he meant. Li Yan's palm tightened slightly on my waist, and it was only after a while that he lowered his eyes to look at me. "That's up to her." I couldn't understand what they were saying, but I was still a little happy. "Then I will start tomorrow. And I will be able to heal you too in a month, and I will do what you promised me." After the white-bearded old man finished speaking, He turned around and went out. I was still sitting on Li Yan's lap, looking at the old man and the figure of Qingshan who went out together, and asked Li Yan, "Husband, am I sick too?" Li Yan didn't speak. I twisted my ass and turned to look at him with sparkling eyes, as soon as he saw the red of his earlobes, which seemed to drip blood. He raised his hand to cover his eyes. After a while, I heard his voice a little hoarse. "Well, I'll be fine soon, I'll wait. What are you waiting for?" I blinked, my eyelashes sweeping over his palm. His body seemed to stiffen, and the breath that fell on my forehead burned with it. I suddenly remembered that it was so hot that day when the temple was broken. "Husband, are you hot again?" I quickly broke his hand.
Li Yan opened his eyes and looked at the curtains beside the bed. The light in his eyes seemed to dim little by little. When she was 4 years old, her mother was seriously ill, and her sister-in-law was sent to the palace to become a concubine. His voice was cold, and he couldn't hear the slightest emotion. The concubine treated me very well, and once swore to treat me as her own before the queen mother's sickbed. After the death of her mother, she was made queen, and she was a model of virtue and virtue in the eyes of all. She is still very good to me, and whatever good things in the palace are the first to be sent to my palace. No matter what mistakes I make, she will protect me hoarsely in front of my father. I have heard of the virtuous successor of which he spoke, when I was 7 years old. I suddenly fell ill and killed a palace man for this. She still begged my father to forgive me with tears in her eyes, and I hid in her arms and cried for a long time that day, thinking that she really loved me like my mother, until she was 9 years old. One of the pastries she brought rolled under the bed, and a wild cat jumped in out of nowhere that night. The wild cat ate the cake and died. He looked sideways at me, a slight hint of despair on his otherwise cold face. I subconsciously held his hand under the covers. The tails of his eyes were red. She never thought of making me emperor. She was bent on plotting for his son, and wanted me to die in the scolding of the people of the world to make room for her virtuous son. He was 9 years old that year. How desperate it must be to see that dead kitten. My heart shrank and ached. "It's okay, it's okay." I hugged him and patted him gently on the back. "Now that you have me, I will protect you." His chin rested lightly on my shoulder. It was as if a tear had fallen on my neck, boiling hot. After a long time, he asked me in a dumb voice, "Sister, why aren't you afraid of me?" "They're all afraid of me, and think I'm a murderous monster." I hugged him tightly and laughed. When I was 7 years old, at His Majesty's birthday banquet, my sister-in-law tricked me into a deserted garden, and I couldn't find my way back, so I hid under a tree and cried. You jumped down from the tree, stuffed the osmanthus crisp in your hand into my hand, and said that everything must depend on yourself to turn around. You know what? When I was 8 years old, I broke my brain and forgot many things, but I remember you alone. The osmanthus cake was the sweetest that day. Li Yan sent me back to Kyoto. When I woke up, the carriage had gone a long way. Mama sat next to me, and when she saw me open her eyes, she was visibly flustered. "Mama, I don't blame you." I sat up and raised my hand to brush my sleeping hair. I knew that Li Yan would definitely send me back to Kyoto, because he felt that the Prime Minister's mansion was much safer than his side. I didn't make any noise, and went back to Kyoto with my grandmother, as if knowing that I was coming back. My father had my old yard cleaned. It looks exactly the same as before, as if I never left here. "It's good to be back." Daddy looked at me without much expression on his face, but with some relief in his eyes. I saluted him and said softly, "Don't forget what Daddy promised my husband." He was slightly stunned. "Sister-in-law, he promised me to write you a letter of reconciliation, and you won't have a husband in the future." I lowered my eyes slightly. "I can tear the book once, and I can tear it twice. He's been so lucky this time, so why should you?" Daddy was a little annoyed. "Your stubbornness is exactly the same as your mother's. If I had known today, I would have died that day and would not have let you marry." I laughed when I heard that. "Daddy, I know you love me in your heart, but you can't let go of power." I thought that Li Yan would be able to keep me if he was abolished, so I wanted my sister to marry the 4th prince. I turned around and went inside. "But I told you I like Li Yan. It's just that he thinks it's just a joke on my child." Daddy had no choice but to leave in a bad mood. Mama tried to come up to me and persuade me, but in the end she didn't say anything. She only sighed. "Now that Miss is grown up and has her own ideas, Madam's spirit in the heavens will also be happy. If the mother is really happy in the spirit of heaven, bless Li Yan." I sat down in front of the desk and wrote a letter to Li Yan. probably telling him that if he dies, I won't live alone. At the end of the book, I felt that I was so bad, and added, "I'm waiting for you in Kyoto." The letter was sent for more than a month, but there was no reply. On the contrary, my father also got busy. Finally, in the second month, the news came out of the palace that the emperor was seriously ill. I suddenly panicked for no apparent reason. I couldn't read the book in my hand. "Miss, the master is detained in the palace." Mama hurriedly walked in. "Your Majesty, I'm afraid I won't be able to survive today." What about Li Yan? All of this should be in Li Yan's plan. But until late at night, I didn't hear anything. He didn't even come back from the palace with his father. I was so anxious that I didn't sleep all night, and it was only on the second day that I finally got my dad back, and the news of the emperor's death. He was really dead. "Daddy, where's Li Yan?" I asked eagerly. With red eyes, he looked up at me and seemed so angry that his beard flew away. "You have no conscience. I didn't return all night, and you even asked that stinky boy first." Seeing him like this, my heart settled down, and I hurriedly stepped forward to support him. "Naturally. I care about you the most. You haven't come back." "I haven't slept all night." His face softened, but he shook off my hand. Don't come with me." In the end, he didn't tell me about Li Yan's whereabouts. On the same day, Mama heard the news that the 4 princes of the queen were imprisoned, but the successor to the throne was not Li Yan. Could it be that all this has nothing to do with Li Yan? I couldn't figure it out, so I wanted to write a letter to Yanzhou. "Mama, close the window. It's a little cold." As soon as I started writing, I felt the wind blowing in through the window. Mama didn't come in, but someone came up behind me. The thick and warm palm covered my hand, and with my hand I finished writing the word husband on the paper. Li Yan has a unique aroma on his body. It always calms my messy mind. I pursed my lips. It's not a gentleman's job to climb over the wall. I sat on the bed for a long time. I put down my pen and turned to throw myself into his arms. For a while, I couldn't say the last word, and I just hugged him and felt that I didn't need to say anything. It was a long time before I asked him, "What's going on now?" The second prince ascended the throne. He picked me up and put me on his lap. He didn't answer me, but smiled and nodded at the tip of my nose. "You like Yanzhou? We will go back to Yanzhou in a few days." I blinked. In a few days, I should want to see the queen and the 4 princes executed with their own eyes. "I thought you'd take back the crown prince." That's what I thought at first. His brow was a little warm with the snow in spring. Later, I thought that the little finch should not be locked in a cage, and I felt that the position of the prince was not as important as the little finch. It was like something was biting down on the tip of my heart, dense and numb. I cupped his face and carefully pecked him on the lips. "Husband." The smile in his eyes slowly faded, leaving only a deep blackness. "It's amazingly dark." Before I could react, he hugged me through the window and went out. As he jumped onto the eaves, I subconsciously put my arms around his neck and exclaimed, "Where are we going?" "Back to Yanzhou." "Isn't it a few days? Now there are more important things." "What's the matter?" "We don't have a cave yet, END."